Okay, when you think about crypto, what are the first two names that pop into your head? For pretty much everyone, it's Bitcoin and Ethereum. They are the absolute titans of this space, the ones that grab all the headlines and drive the conversation. But here's the thing, while they might seem similar on the surface, they are fundamentally different beasts. So let's dive in and really unpack what sets these two apart.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at just how dominant these two really are. Then, we'll get into their completely different goals and blueprints, what they were actually built to do. After that, we'll pop the hood and check out the tech, see what you can actually do with them, and finally, we'll tackle that ultimate question, which one might be right for you? All right, first up, the two titans of crypto. Let's start by just getting a sense of the scale we're dealing with here, because it's crucial to understanding why this comparison even matters so much. And that scale brings us right to the heart of the matter. People see these two names everywhere and naturally ask, okay, what's the real difference here? Beyond just the price. They both use blockchain technology, sure, but honestly, that's kind of where the similarities stop. The distinctions are where things get really interesting.
And when we talk about scale, wow, just look at this. The sheer size of their market caps is staggering. You can see Bitcoin's bar just towering over everything else. It is the undisputed heavyweight champion. But don't let that fool you. Ethereum is an absolute powerhouse in its own right, with a huge territory. To be honest, for a lot of people, these two don't just lead the market, they are the market.
So let's get into their fundamental philosophies, because this is where their paths really diverge. These two are never designed to do the same thing, and to understand that, we've got to rewind the clock and look at where they came from.
Bitcoin, of course, came first. Back in 2009, the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto launched it with a very clear mission: create a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, a new form of money. Then, a whole 6 years later, in 2015, Ethereum shows up. And its goal wasn't to replace Bitcoin, but to take that core blockchain idea and do something way bigger with it.
And this right here is the absolute key difference. Bitcoin was built to be one thing, a new kind of money and a store of value, completely outside the control of governments or banks. Ethereum, on the other hand, was built to be more like a world computer. It's a platform, a digital playground where developers can build and run all sorts of unstoppable applications.
There's a really great analogy that helps make this distinction stick. People often say Bitcoin is like digital gold. It's rare, it's durable, and people hold on to it as a store of value. And if Bitcoin is gold, then Ethereum is digital silver. Still incredibly valuable for sure, but also super useful and versatile. It's the material that thousands of other things are built from.
Okay, now it's time to get a little technical. Let's pop the hood and look at the engines that make these two networks run. Because how they're built dictates everything: their speed, their security, and even how much energy they use.
Bitcoin runs on a system called proof of work. The easiest way to think about this is like a giant global lottery. Computers all over the world, called miners, are all racing to solve a really complex math problem. The first one to get it right gets to validate the next batch of transactions and is rewarded with new Bitcoin. It's an incredibly secure system, but it uses a ton of electricity.
Now, Ethereum used to work that way too, but it went through a massive upgrade to a system called proof of stake. Here, instead of a race, people called validators lock up their own crypto. They stake it as collateral. For doing that, they get a chance to be chosen to validate transactions and earn rewards. The big takeaway? You get that same network security, but without the insane energy bill.
And the effect of that change was just mind-blowing. When Ethereum switched to proof of stake, its energy consumption dropped by an estimated 99.9%. That is a monumental shift. It directly addressed one of the biggest criticisms that's been thrown at crypto for years.
This table really puts it all side by side. You can see the different consensus models we just talked about, but also look at the max supply. Bitcoin has a hard cap of 21 million coins, which is key to its digital gold identity. Ethereum's supply is more flexible, and check out the speed difference. Bitcoin blocks take about 10 minutes, while Ethereum's are about 12 seconds. That speed is absolutely essential for running applications smoothly. So that's the history and the tech, but who cares, right? What does any of this mean for you in the real world? Let's talk about what you can actually do with them, because this is where those different designs really come to life.
Bitcoin's use cases are very direct and powerful, and they all circle back to its identity as a new form of money. It's seen as a store of value, that digital gold we talked about, a way to protect your savings from inflation.
And of course, it's used for payments and for sending money across borders, often faster and cheaper than the old-school banking system.
And then you have Ethereum. It's less of a single thing and more like a bustling digital city. This is the home of DeFi, or decentralized finance, which is all about rebuilding things like lending and trading without the big banks. It's where NFTs were born, giving us true digital ownership of art and collectibles. It's all built on top of these things called smart contracts, which are just agreements written in code that run automatically. It's the foundation for a whole new version of the internet.
Okay, so this brings us to the final section, and it's probably the most important one. After hearing about all these differences, the big question on everyone's mind is, so what do I do with this information?
And that question usually sounds something like this. So which one is the better investment? It's a fair question. But after everything we've talked about, you can probably see that better isn't quite the right word, because they're playing two completely different games.
The real answer, the most honest answer, is right here. It's not about which one is better in a vacuum. It's about which one fits your goals, your interests, and your strategy for the future.
So let's make it super simple. You might lean towards Bitcoin if your main goal is long-term saving, if you see it as a way to protect your wealth from inflation, kind of like digital gold. On the other hand, you might be more drawn to Ethereum if you're fascinated by the cutting edge of technology, if things like DeFi, NFTs, and this whole world of decentralized apps get you excited. In the end, both Bitcoin and Ethereum are constantly growing and pushing the limits of what we thought was possible. They aren't really competitors in a head-to-head race. They're more like two foundational pillars for an entirely new digital economy. So the real question isn't about which one will win. It's about how these two titans, evolving side by side, are going to continue to reshape our world. So, what do you think is coming next?
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and click on the bell icon to turn on notifications.